Hey everybody, this is your boy Isaac.
And this is your boy Bryce.
And we of course are brothers on tennis. And folks, we have got we've got a star with us, and I'm extremely excited to talk to this gentleman. We've got Tim White with us, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about a certain film that we believe you all may have heard of and or seen.
I'm very excited today because we will be speaking with the screenwriter of King Richard, Mr. Zach Baylin. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Reinaldo Marcus Green to Brothers on Tennis. Welcome to you, Isha Price.
Hello,
hey, Isha.
hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Isha?
So glad to be here with you all. Really appreciate the invitation to have a conversation with y'all. So thanks for having me.
We are so happy to have your lovely face on our screen and a part of Brothers on Tennis. And Isha, just in regards to the project, first of all, congratulations. This is just really, really an incredible and wonderful achievement. Kind of as Bryce had mentioned, talk to us about kind of how this whole thing even just started. I mean, because we've talked, of course, with Tim, we've talked with Zach, we've talked with Ray, and there was all this buzz that's happening in their kind of environment. But how did you all find out about it and or hear about it, and just talk us through that entire process, if you will?
It was an idea, that sort of really came about in 2014, 2015 area. Look, at the end of the day, it was an unbelievable American dream story, an unbelievable family story, an unbelievable success story. And I think the most important aspect about it that I think really made us want to go after it was unknown, and I think which I think is really huge, because if it's something that sort of everyone knows about, that Steven Spielberg and J.J. Abrams and whoever, that they've already been reaching out to it. It's like everyone in town has already seen it and they're going after it. So it was a largely unknown story, and it was really the origin story for two of the greatest female athletes really of all time. I think for me also, from sort of a tennis standpoint, I can't remember who exactly, but I remember I was talking to a very notable sort of pro tennis player who said, I told him about this idea, and they said the greatest coaching story in sports history.
Yes.
To not have that this man did not one success story but two, and I just thought that's exactly what it is. It's hard to think of something like this. They're the Manning brothers.
Yep.
But they had a father who had the background in the sport. Like in the case of Richard, no background in the sport, self-taught himself, without the means to really, properly do it.
Right.
So, but anyway, so I think we really thought this is amazing because it's largely unknown. So like I was saying earlier, we spent a couple years trying to find the right writer for the project. When we finally met Zach Baylin, just sort of instantly he had the take. He knew the window of time, which was the key aspect of this. Is there really so many different ways to tell the Richard Williams family story? I mean, it's endless what you could do, and we heard probably every different permutation that you could do in there. And Zach really came in and said, okay, this is where it starts and this is where it ends. And he captured the character in sort of his kind of initial outline to us that I think we just felt like this is it. We had goosebumps reading reading that email, he sort of understood Richard's backstory and his past, and he tapped into just sort of things about the character that we didn't know, and so we hired Zach to write it. He delivered a script that, was just absolutely amazing, completely undeniable, and that's what really launched the project. And I think we started sending the script around town, and not only was everyone saying, "Wow, this is so well written," but they were also saying, "Is this actually true? This is actually how it happened." And I think that tapped into sort of the kind of initial idea, which is no one knows this, and that's why it's worth doing.
Yeah. So essentially, I had a general meeting, which in the film industry is like you get set up on a lot of blind dates, essentially, with producers who have ideas, or you have a script or a story that you're interested in finding a producer for. And I had a meeting with this guy, Tim White, who, hopefully people will have seen this one. And we were in New York, and we had met for about an hour in like a hotel lobby, talking about a variety of different ideas that he was working on or that I was working on. And then we were just going to say goodbye. And it had been like nice to meet you. Hope maybe we'll find something in the future. And as I was leaving the meeting, I mentioned to him that I was on my way to the US Open. So that was September of 2017. And Tim was like, "Well, if you like tennis, give me 5 more minutes, because I have this movie idea that I've been trying to figure out for a long time." And I sat back down, and he said, "What do you know about Richard Williams and Venus and Serena?" And and that was the beginning. So that was extremely, we think Tim and I talk about that all the time, that just if I had never said I was going to the Open, that idea never comes up, and that, a lot of things had to go right at that moment for that idea to be brought up. And it was, then for me, it was pretty immediate that when he said it, I knew the Williams family story just from being a tennis fan. I knew about Richard peripherally, just, I'm sure as anyone watching those matches in those years had, but I didn't really know the details, or I didn't remember them. And then I went home that weekend. I basically said, don't hire anyone else for this. I know this is a huge idea and this could be an incredible movie. Give me a weekend to try and figure out what I think the story would be. Because obviously when you're telling someone's life, you could say, let's start it with when Richard is born in Shreveport and it ends it ends now, or the whole thing is, is about Indian Wells or something. It could be any aspect of their life. But I went home on a weekend and I read Richard's book, and I read Macy's book, and I read Serena's book. Everyone wrote a book, and and sort of pretty quickly found the window of what is the movie now, and said, I think this is the time frame that we should focus on and tell their story through. And Tim and his brother Trevor said, okay, let's take a shot.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. Honestly, it's never happened for me like that before. One that someone tells you an idea and you're like, this is the greatest idea for a movie I've ever heard. And then that what the movie should be arrives with real clarity from the beginning. And that happened for me, but usually it doesn't. And it takes, you're just chipping away and trying to figure out, you have a kernel of something, but you don't know which path the story is going to take or what you want to focus on. And this was, I don't know, it was just like sitting there, very clear from the beginning.
Fate.
I think it was a lot of discussions with the family in prep. And prep is everything, as you know, for any tournament, for anything. We had a pretty full preseason, and we had a lot of prep, and we had access. Isha Price is the producer on the film. And so she facilitated meetings with myself, the writer Zach, Tim, for us to meet Serena Venus, Oracene in prep, and we got face-to-face time with all of them, and we asked them every question that we, to try to fill in the blanks of things that we didn't know based on the script that Zach had written. And so that's how we first started, was really just getting stories and hearing their perspective of their relationships and sort of the inner workings of the family and how close they are. And stories like all of the girls were picking up balls, and wait, so your oldest sister was picking up the balls, and wait, that's crazy. So like all of those, like the whole family aspect of the movie really started to flush itself out once we were in prep. And so Zach and I can then go back into the script and say, hey, this is all really, really juicy stuff. And like, the family needs to be a little bit more involved here. Like, this is not just a Venus Serena or even a Will thing. This is a full family affair. And so the bus became a character, and how we get the girls in the bus and how we get them out. And they call it the bus, how we get them in the bus, how do we get them out of the bus? How they pick up balls, they hang signs. And it added this other dimension to the Williams family that we as audience members, people that even follow them, probably didn't know. They didn't know how close this family was, and how tight knit and how many of them there were. And wow, they slept in one, like Serena didn't have a bed and she would go from one sister's bed to the other. Like all the flavor of the film really came out from the conversations with the family. And so they were instrumental in telling us these stories. Now, they weren't saying we want them in the movie, but I was like, whoa, we need to put it in the movie. And so for me, I was like a kid in the candy store. Every story that I heard, every story that we heard, we could then try to find a way to put it into the movie. And so sometimes it was a character detail, sometimes it was just a principle, and I'll give you an example. When I sat with Venus, one of the first things she said was, Serena is the kind of sister that would skip a match to see me practice. Now, I couldn't add a scene to the movie to show that, but what we could do is show the sentiment of two sisters that love each other and have an unbreakable bond. That for dramatic licenses, I wasn't going to tear the family apart, and show them competing against each other because it would make for good drama. Right. And so those were the things that were important to me as a filmmaker to honor for the family, to say, hey, okay, I still have to make a movie. I do have to take certain licenses because it's a 2.5 hour movie and that's already long. I have to make a movie and I have to make it enjoyable for audiences. So there are certain things that I have to make cinematic. Yes, I understand that conversation may have happened in a bedroom, but it's much more cinematic if it happens on the tennis court with Will and Sanaya looking at each other. Now, did it happen? Yes, the conversation happened. Did it happen there? Absolutely not. And so I think for me, it was important to sort of talk to the family, discuss cinematically how I wanted to achieve the authenticity of what their experience was and how we can give an authentic experience to an audience while still, taking certain liberties in the filmmaking process. If you're fans, you may have known about the final match, but that didn't happen in an open air arena with 7,000 people. Like, that just didn't happen. Those tournaments don't ever go to that level. But for our movie and for a movie experience, it's pretty darn incredible to experience it that way. It's rocky, it's Rudy, it's magical. And I can say, hey, guys, let's take it out of this dinky little, tennis arena. I know that that's what you guys do in juniors and stuff, but I don't follow tennis and I want to see something big, at the end of the movie. And so, I could add a visual language to the movie. I could add some scale and scope and size. And look, everybody was on board. Of course, look, you have a movie star, you have to make it big and you have to make it fit for him so that it doesn't feel like he himself has to carry the whole weight of the film. And so to answer your question, the family was instrumental in really facilitating those meetings. early on, and then Isha obviously remained on set throughout the entire process. Lindrea Price is also a wardrober on the film, so they could tell us I would wear this and she would wear that, and those are the colors that she had, even though no one knows. It's subconscious. It's the things that you feel when you're watching a movie. You feel that you believe that they were wearing them. And that's all you need to know as the audience member. For me, it's the more specific we can be, the more universal the story becomes. And that's what I'm trying to achieve as a filmmaker, right? In the process of making the movie, is getting it to be as authentic as we possibly can, so that you can feel that when you're watching the movie.
Right. So Will Smith.
Yeah. So, he really wanted to be involved extremely early. He also, and he wanted to be involved from a producer level, of course. And of course he wanted to play my dad. But beautiful thing about Will is, he was willing to, like, if there had been a situation where somebody else we felt was better, he would have acquiesced to that, and it was so critically important to him that we were all on board. Without that, he was like, I don't want to be involved if they don't want to be involved with it. It has to be something that the family agrees to do. And internally, it wasn't easy, necessarily lobbying for the film, in all honesty, because my family, again, is very, very private. And when I after, disseminating the script to everybody and talking to everybody about it, it was like, well, they might vilify daddy more, and, and trying to figure out like how this would turn out and what would happen, and how Hollywood oftentimes is in certain situations, especially with biopics. It was a real concern, and that was why, there had to be some assurance from all parties. And Will was willing to be a partner and a collaborator in that too, and making sure that it was something that we could be proud of. And he tells this story, which I don't even know why, because I'd never really, but he told it like recently. We didn't agree to sign on officially until after the film was filmed. And the reason that we didn't is because we didn't want a bait and switch happening. So oftentimes there's such a level of distrust in our community, and I own that, but there's been so many poor representations of people of color in the media that it was super important, even though, black on black crime happens, even though we trust it, it's like trust but verify, you know what I mean?
Right.
And at the end of the day, I'd also been, told by several different people, like, once the studio gets their hands on it, you could all have the best of intentions, but there could be the situation that happens after and post. And, so there was this huge fear. And finally, I was so proud of what we shot day to day, and knowing everything that we had day to day, that I knew that there was no way, unless you were like in editing, there was no way that it wasn't going to be right. And so we had another meeting as a family, and I was like, I think we're good. And so then we signed on. But Will was a huge collaborator from early on. And we met with some opposition for that, because people were like, oh, it should be someone darker. Colorism, even among us, is really unbelievable, and we could have, but I think it was important for the story to be told from the perspective of an American actor, because the American experience is extremely unique. in all of the diaspora, right? Like it's our experience. And so, yes, you could have somebody come from, because a lot of the talented actors that we have that, you know, they're not American. And, you know, their experience is unique, I'm sure too, but I wouldn't be able to bring, you know, like, and I'm not saying they wouldn't be able to bring something, you know, to the table in terms of this experience, but it's something to be said from somebody who is from Philly and gets it, you know what I mean, in a way that we're from Compton, you know what I'm saying? So there was that part of it too. And so we were like, you know, people can say what they want and they can do what they want, but we didn't want a caricature. We wanted an embodiment. And I think that Will was able to do that in a beautiful way.
You're absolutely right about that, Isha. I mean, one of the things that Bryce and I, just in speaking on that topic, when we heard about King Richard and we heard about the fact that Will was going to play Richard, now, just being transparent with you, that was the first thing that came across our mind. We were like, It was like, we would think that someone like an Idris Elba would be more of a, of course, because he's got the look. But you're right, it's that embodiment that when we saw the film and we saw Will's portrayal of your father, it was transformative. It was amazing.
Right.
And yeah,
he did
just
an
amazing.
Unbelievable job. Like, I get chills thinking about it. The work, that his work ethic is inspiring. The way that he always had the person who helps you with accents. And she was amazing. She's actually amazing. But anyway, he had her on set every day in the trailer, going over the lines, making sure it was authentic, making sure that he had the Southern drawl that was appropriate for someone from Louisiana, not just, you know, someone from the South, you know, even that part of it. Daddy always said Porsche. And it, you know, there was just instead of porch. So there were so many small nuanced things. And he would stay in character. And so sometimes, you know, it is funny because our sister Lynn worked on the film as well in costuming, and Yatundi's son was actually on the film as well, and as a utility. And sometimes it was really. It was a trip, y'all. Like I know, like, it sounds crazy, but it was a trip. Like, I would hear him and I would have to do like a little bit of a double take. Like, what? You know, it was very strange. It was very strange. Will did an unbelievable job. He really did. And he would and was willing to learn more and you know, this hand motion or that, like, he'd studied so many hours of tape and listened to my dad for so long, and he had these hand movements, and I was like, oh my gosh, that it was bananas. It was really bananas to see that transformation take place.
That is awesome. And you know, and I don't know if you, well, of course you don't know this because we've just met recently, but I'm originally from Shreveport.
Oh, okay.
So I was very interested to learn that part about Richard. I actually started learning that when I started reading his book, Black and White. Mm-hmm. But actually, Isaac and I, we were out here, I think, in Indian Wells when the film was released, because I think it was World Team Tennis was going on or something like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so opening night, we made sure we went to the theaters to watch it. And I'm gonna tell you something, as impressed as we were with Will, and clearly Will knocked it out the park, we came out talking about Ingenue Ellis.
Listen.
Talk to us about that.
It's called Be About It, Don't Talk About It. And it's so strange. Like, this is something, this is a trip. So my mother was actually born in Mississippi, and that's where Miss Ingenue is from.
Oh, okay.
And my mother was raised in Michigan, Saginaw, Michigan. And it's really interesting, like, the way that they connected in terms of like her embodied, like, she knew my mom. You know what I mean? Like she got it. And it's because I think they have a very similar quiet temperament as people, right? And so when we were doing the casting, first of all, Rich Dahlia, he is amazing. And so whom we had to choose from and pick from, no matter how many people that we wanted and had to have and would have loved to have, she was the one that really stuck out. And it was just kind of like seeing her on set and at the table read, even at the table read in the beginning, it was just kind of like, oh, you know what I mean? And not really knowing what you were going to get from this person, but her being so inquisitive about, like, you know, why do you think your mom did this? And I got to tell you, a couple times I was like, you have to talk to her. I put her on the phone. I was like, I can't, you know, because at this point it's like COVID and it's really, you know, challenging. And I was like, you know, because some of that stuff, like, you know, but Anjanou got it, you know, and she was able to bring that powerhouse of a performance and really embody my mom. And the kicker is that my mother has quite a few siblings. And so what had happened was she has a younger sister, my aunt, and we call her Auntie, but her name is Ruth Margaret. And my aunt called her and was like, Orsine, that was you, you know. It went on and on and on. And everyone, my mother has a very dear friend in DC, she's family. Her name is Cora Masters Berry. Same thing. She came up, she was crying. She was like, oh, that was Orsine. And it's so weird because when you see yourself reflected, there are so many things maybe about yourself that you don't see. You know, there's that window into yourself. There's stuff everybody sees, but you don't see. And so my mom at first was like, when she saw it for the first time, so we had a screening. Warner Brothers was great. They allowed us to have a screening just for our family in Florida when the film was like the initial edit to get our comments and everything else. And I you know, I was sitting there kind of like on pins and needles. I flew down to Florida. And I was like, oh my goodness, because you got to understand, my heart was like beating in my chest, like, okay, they haven't seen it. Like I've sent them clips and shared dailies with them, but they haven't seen it, you know. And we're sitting there and there are certain scenes and, you know, and there are certain things that, you know, were just her. And I'm waiting on criticism at the end, you know what I mean? Quite frankly, because I'm just kind of like, okay, here it comes. Like, you know, she's gonna say, I don't like this, I don't like that, you know. And honestly, it was none of that. My mother was quiet, which meant something to me. And Serena walked out and everybody was crying, you know, at different parts of it. And I remember Serena walked out. I would take Olympia out because Olympia joins us for every family thing. And I, you know, there are certain parts of it that I take her out and I'm racing up and down, really trying to get the angst out of like what's happening in the theater, you know. So I'm like running up and down the hallway outside of our individual theater. And so afterward, you know, I'm kind of still breathing hard. And Serena goes, I hate you. And I said, I was like, what? And she was like, I hate you. She was like, it's so good, Isha. And you had me crying. I cried the whole time. It was so, for me, it was really, really, really amazing. And of course, one of the first things that was said was Anjanou got mom down. Like, so glad that it did. I really am. And that was, you know, it couldn't have come across, I think better, especially at a time where, you know, people are really quick to vilify others and look for ways to cancel people. And I think that was our biggest concern, you know, because my dad had been vilified for the very thing that he tried to protect us from, you know, which is everybody else's opinion and a way of doing things. And, you know, he wanted us to be well-rounded people. My mom, you know, they wanted us to be good people first. And everything else could come after, you know? That was like the critical thing. And because that's what he wanted, it was, oh, he's too hard on them, or, oh, he's not allowing them to play juniors, he's doing it all wrong, he's gonna ruin it for them, he doesn't really care about his family. If he did, he would have did it this way and that way. And for this film to just be able to dispel all of that has just been, that for me has been really a gift. And also for people to really understand that Venus really broke down the door because of her willingness to be first. I get emotional thinking about it because she's okay also with not getting recognition or anything. Like, she doesn't care about that, but she loves her sister. So, you know, she'd be willing to fight in the locker room or anywhere else if you made her, you know what I'm saying? And that level of love to be able to come across in Sanaya and Demi, we were really gifted with those performances, with those actors. Danielle Lawson, who played me, Layla Crawford, who played Lynn, Michaela, who played Yetunde. We were really, truly gifted with everybody and with the whole project.